Welcome to the second part of our series, Will DeFi Cross the Chasm? Today, we're focused on NFTs and how far we've come today and what the future holds. Before we continue, here's a quick word from our CEO, Michael.
Thank you, Kieran. NFTs have become increasingly popular, with over $2 billion worth of sales in the first quarter of 2021. So much so, traditional media and tech giants such as CNN and Twitter have jumped on the bandwagon. But how is the NFT space accessible to artists from the global south and meme creators from around the world? And quite a lot of NFT projects have community governance. And how does this aspect lend itself appealing to the masses and help DeFi cross the chasm? But what does DeFi have anything to do with NFTs in the first place? Our expert panelists would share their thoughts on this and various topics around this. Back to you, Kieran.
Thanks, Michael. Big things are happening in this space. So if you haven't already, download or upgrade the Pillar app now. We've just launched V2, which allows you to access Ethereum sidechains from one dashboard with automatic network switching. Head over to pillar.fi now to download. I'm your host, Kieran Gadari, or Keo for short. I'm head of engineering, mobile engineering at Pillar, and I'm going to be taking you on this wild ride today through the world of non-fungible tokens, or NFTs for short. Before we continue, here's a little recap. The humble NFT, or simply a unique digital asset. This NFT is a unique representation of something, but this something can be anything, but the NFT itself represents that something and its ownership. The first NFTs can be traced back through 2012, but we're going to fast forward a little bit. NFTs first gained large-scale popularity on the Ethereum network with an advent of rare peeps, also known as Piperium, around March 2017. Users were simply trading memes as NFTs, classic. Around June 2017, not too long after, the crypto punks turned up, with a realization that unique characters with unique characteristics could be created randomly on the Ethereum blockchain. This gave the CryptoPunks the ability to create any number of unique characters. No two characters, each represented by an NFT, would be the same. Only a few months later, in October 2017, the CryptoKitties came crashing onto the scene. Realizing the possibilities of randomly generated characters and cats, it can be argued that CryptoKitties was the first NFT outfit to hit the mainstream, with news outlets everywhere covering these unique digital felines, and in some cases, their astonishingly high price tags. That was a busy 2017. So let's fast forward again to the present day. It goes without saying that these days, it's starting to become a bit more understood to the non-technical person that NFTs generally represent a unique ownership of something. And it has been art, one of the most notable characteristics of being human, that has been one of the primary uses of NFTs over the years. So in an attempt to frame NFT popularity today, let's just run down the top 5 NFT sales. So at number 5, we got Twitter's first ever tweet by co-founder Jack Dorsey. That sold for $2.9 million. $2.9 million. At number 4, we've got artist Beeple's work entitled Crossroads. That sold for $6.6 million. At number 3, we got CryptoPunk, number 7,804. That sold for $7.57 million. At number 2, we've got CryptoPunk number 3,100, and that sold for $7.58 million, just a little bit higher there. And at number one, we've got artist Beeple's work entitled Every Day, the First 5,000 Days, which sold at an eye-watering $69 million. And that was auctioned by world-famous auction house Christie's. So with this level of understanding and interest, we found ourselves asking a couple more questions. Well, what else can we do with NFTs? Property ownership? Legal entitlements? Governance? Well, let's find out. Just before we continue, if you have any questions, please submit them using the Q&A function on Zoom. Joining me today are Drew Harding, James Young, and Nate Hindman. Drew has founded multiple startups across various industries with a focus on software design, development, and digital marketing. He has helped around 500 startup founders turn their own dreams and ideas into reality through the two agencies he founded, neonroots.com and rootstrap.com. He is very active in the DeFi world with his fingerprints found on Pillar, Block Native, Metacartel, MetaFactory, among many other places. Welcome, Drew. James has been in the Ethereum space for many years and has an insightful view on a wide range of topics. He's the founder of Abridged and in turn, Collab.land. That's Collab.land, whose mission it is to make the promises of blockchain and decentralization a reality by bringing usability to Web3. Their tools empower devs to build an intuitive Web3 experience into familiar interfaces. They want to give everyone, not just coders, access to build applications using blockchain technology. Nate heads up growth at Bancor. After a record-breaking ICO in 2017, there's that year again, Bancor was one of the first organizations to spearhead the concept of liquidity pools and algorithmic market making via the use of smart contracts. Since then, Bancor now offers its own non-custodial wallet app and to date has around 1.24 billion USD total value logged. So with that, let's head over to some questions. Drew, we all know how well connected you are in this space. Could you give us some insights into what interesting NFT projects could be coming our way?
Oh man.
I know. It's gonna be one of them questions.
Yeah, pretty open-ended there. You know, that's I think what's really most exciting about NFTs. Up until this point, it's been really focused on art. And, you know, we're starting to see it bleed into other facets. But the reality is from a value, I guess, capture and abstraction standpoint, NFTs actually have a much larger potential in kind of our world and our economy. Most things typically have their own value. They are non-fungible. When you think about houses, you think about art, as we're, you know, cars. Most of these things are not fungible in the sense that each car is equal to each other car, right? So when you think about how these things can be applied, it's pretty extensive. Personally, on like my side, the project that I've been most focused on recently is MetaFactory, which is kind of a crypto culture focused marketplace, community driven. We are a DAO, and basically we are creating and producing merchandise, physical merchandise, but we also are creating the digital complements, i.e. NFTs that represent those physical pieces in virtual worlds, game platforms, et cetera, et cetera. So we're starting to explore what NFTs can represent in that space, right? So fashion, digital fashion, and this, you know, extends into many other things. But yeah, I think really we're going to see NFTs take hold in a major way across many different industries. And as far as I'm concerned, it's very nascent and the landscape's pretty untouched at this point.
Yeah, totally agree. You know, I've always wondered. I mean, you're dabbling now in various areas what NFTs can represent and what it can do. Given that you're experimenting at the moment with, you know, where NFTs can be placed and what they can represent, like, you know, is there anything on your radar where you're thinking, right, this NFT representation of like X, this is about to blow up? Like, can you foresee anything like on the horizon?
Um,
I mean, art was like almost like the de facto. I don't know if it was the de facto one, but you know, it felt like, you know, it's unique, it's human, it's one to one. You know, what comes after art, right?
I think the other big reason art kind of came first was like the creator economy. And we've seen like in a lot of different industries, generally speaking, creators have had a pretty hard time, right? You have to struggle really hard. The starving artist stereotype that we're all kind of familiar with. And if you make it, you break through, you get that record deal, you get the gallery showing, whatever it might be, then you kind of are able to elevate yourself, your brand. What this does is democratize the ability for anybody to kind of like create and put art out there in a decentralized fashion. So I think like that's one of the reasons why naturally it came from that angle.
Yeah,
And it was a little bit lower barrier as well. I believe, you know, again, I think it's going to be across the board, but I'm starting to see music really start to take hold in an interesting way. I think that's going to be a big one. And I think that's also culturally driven, right? We're very emotionally attached, driven, love our artists, and we love music. It's a great way, like we celebrate culture and art. So I wouldn't be surprised to see music explode in the same way that, you know, physical, tangible art or digital art has in this space. Specific projects I can point to, I don't really have any that come to mind. I bet James might have some insight there, but yeah, I'm pretty
yeah,
excited to watch the space, and I believe it's full landscape, so
yeah,
it's really going
yeah.
to be not limited in any way. So
Yeah, I mean, I always had this idea of bridging, crossing the chasm. I always had this idea in my head that I wanted to set up a physical space, like in the real world. It's weird that we're saying that. That was effectively an art gallery, but it had screens everywhere displaying
right.
NFT art. You know, like I have this like weird I've got my own sort of little mission to try and educate, you know, and show people that, you know, this is where art's heading, this is what you do, this is your opportunity, you know, this is whether we like it or not, this is the future. We'll always have the physical side of things, but digital is part of our life now, you know.
I mean, imagine shopping too. I've actually spoken with real estate developers that are basically interested in putting up what you're talking about, essentially a blank bare space,
Yeah,
and then laying virtual experience on top of that, but specific to actually the orientation of where tables are, where pictures are. So you're wearing a set and possibly walking through the store, and your physical reality matches your virtual in terms of like physical objects, but
yeah,
you could be looking at a couch and you'd be like, I don't really like that color. Let's see it in blue. Let's see it in red. Like, you don't actually need to stock all the colors or even the physical object itself to necessarily experience that thing. Now, it could just be the plain white couch. You sit on it, it feels like it. Okay, well, this is the color I want. This isn't necessarily the material I want. So there are some limitations, but you know, these people are starting to explore this. And again, this is coming from a real estate developer completely
yeah,
outside of our space.
yeah,
So
yeah.
not even from within crypto, right? So
Yeah, yeah, of all the industries, you know, like they're jumping on the bandwagon, which says something, you know. So just talking, you know, just thinking about of that space and real estate, you know, I always remember you. We always had a conversation about you'd love to give us a tour of the metaverse, right? This is a really important thing. We've got to cover this. Could you just explain what the metaverse is?
oh yeah. So the metaverse is essentially, I mean, this is a concept that's been discussed by many, I guess, predicted by many, especially like sci-fi authors, writers. And it's the idea of a completely open digital landscape that's accessible to anyone, that in some senses mirrors the physical world, and in some senses is completely unique. Along with NFTs, I actually believe that we have an untapped, basically, landscape in the digital world to recreate most, if not all, physical experiences in a digital reality. And what that means is everything, every industry, every economy, every market commerce opportunity that exists in a physical reality can also likely be ported to, in some sense, a digital one as well. In some cases, it'll actually be very reminiscent. In some, it'll be totally different. But it's this idea of a completely open, interoperable, accessible to anybody digital landscape. I guess the best way to think of it is the digital equivalent of, physical land. And, we have so many kind of existing mental models around what that should look like. And a lot of the virtual worlds as they've come up, which are kind of independently siloed and they're trying to figure these things out themselves, they match this physical reality of there's a building and then we're wearing clothes that like match the clothes we wear, and we're driving cars that match the physical cars we're aware of. But the reality is, being digital, it's completely open. Yeah. The physics that we're confined by in the physical do not have to apply in the digital. So much more can be accomplished. The land can go vertical, it could go expansive. There's no limitation in terms of how much is there. What we wear, who we are as avatars, how we, communicate, all these things are open for reinterpretation. And, as I mentioned, we're seeing a number of projects that are exploring this in independent ways, their own platforms, art styles, governance systems, commerce systems, whatever it might be. Yeah. And I think the next layer, the true metaverse, the open metaverse where we need to get is when we're able to actually link these all together and create essentially interoperability, which may mean jumping from one to the other and having basically routes in between or a layer in between that allows for traversing these things. But I guess the best kind of pop culture example that most people might be familiar with would be, say, like Ready Player One.
I was just going to mention that. I was just going to mention, have you seen that film Ready Player One?
Yeah, and great book, by the way. I would actually take it a step back if you're really interested in the metaverse and what can happen and where these things can go. Definitely recommend the book Snow Crash as well, which was kind of like the pioneering idea. In fact, I believe metaverse conceptually and the lexicon, most of the lexicon that we use today to still talk about these things was first defined in that literature. So
fascinating stuff. Thanks for that, Drew. Yeah, really insightful stuff. So James, I mean, where or how do you see NFTs like evolving in the coming years? Do you see NFTs like being commonplace in society? I mean, feel free to go wild here, like give us your thoughts.
Yeah. So with Collab.land, just to give some context, we do token gated chat, and you have an NFT and you can use it as a ticket into a Discord or Telegram channel. So I think the question and the way I would frame it is NFT, now what? Right? And so NFT as digital art, as Drew was talking about, is this like gateway into mainstream. What we're seeing at the very beginnings is NFT as a ticket or a badge into a gated channel. So you will have a celebrity, an influencer, create NFTs. And if you have, read Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans, crypto allows this signaling skin in the game for that 1,000 true fans through the purchase of these NFTs. And what we're seeing is these celebrities get these people into a gated chat, and now you have behind the scene access. And now you can get special information, drops early on. So one of the mainstream entertainers that we're working with is a musician. And I think NFTs in general, because I don't know if it's just kind of the nature of the medium of music, it's very communal and it's very shareable. And so NFTs lend to that in this communal like access that you get. And so you can imagine the musician, what they're doing now is getting behind the scenes access, and they also have a shoe line. So they drop early the shoes before, like an hour or two before the regular fan base. And you can imagine this like tiered access where you can level up. So essentially what you're doing is you're taking like these mechanisms that you see in games and you're just applying them into the real world, right? So NFTs, you can think of it as the virtual currency that has leaked out into, you know, meat space, which I think is also a Snow Crash reference. What we also are seeing is NFTs as a gateway for, you know, crypto media. And, you know, so CryptoPunks you mentioned is one of the top 5 selling. Like I can see very soon a CryptoPunks animated series on Netflix as marketing into crypto, to be able to like espouse crypto narratives, what's happening in a very entertaining, fun way, right? And I think that will be this evolution into mainstream. You're seeing that with like projects like Bored Ape Yacht Club. Now they have like, you know, different lines where you have not only these apes, but like pups, and then you have physical merch. And so you're seeing NFTs as this like new form of medium where you are not just this passive audience member, but you are interacting with the medium. And at a larger kind of macro level, you're seeing NFTs in the context of this, I would call it, you know, this investment as entertainment. So NFTs in crypto are not going to compete against banks or finance. They're going to compete against a user's time watching Netflix. And so this is, you see the beginnings of this in non-crypto as well, with like what's happened on Reddit and Wall Street Bets, right? Crypto just allows that to happen 24/7, 365, international, permissionless. So I think the evolution of NFTs and like as a media extension is one path. I think another path is when you take a look at like these groups that are issuing these NFTs, you can think of the NFT as like the first funding for a startup. So you can think of it as, you know, seed financing. If it goes well, people are involved. You as an investor can also become the customer. So just as Web 2 blurred the lines of consumer and producer, Web 3 blurs the lines of investor and employee and customer. You can become all three at the same time.
Yeah, that's fascinating stuff. You know, earlier on, you were just talking about like celebrities and all that, getting off the NFT bandwagon. And, you know, this could be anyone or anything or any outfit, but who do you think, just in your opinion, has done NFTs like the best, like, or at least one of the best? What's the most interesting use of NFTs that you might have seen so far?
I think that we're just scraping the surface of this, right? Like we can only take this new technology, and the first experiments are mapping it to what already exists. So I think that's why digital art for NFTs is just kind of the gateway, right? Because we know fine art, we know that art can sell for a lot. And, you know, NFTs really, you know, that art part of it is just the metadata. It's really that ownership. NFTs are really like a certificate of ownership.
Yeah.
What we're seeing though, that is kind of like native to the medium itself, I think is, you know, what we're seeing with like Bored Apes Yacht Club or FWB, or, you know, even with Drew and MetaFactory. These are things that are emerging design-wise, and having this like ethos or this culture of let's experiment and let's figure it out as we go along. And this is why it's so exciting. And this is why, you know, you need to like participate and be a part of it. Just listening about it or just studying it without really being an operator or in operational mode, you miss so much because there's so much nuance and there's so much small insights that you learn. I think that, NFTs as the beginnings of decentralized organizations for DAOs, I think is really going to start taking off. I think that also, who else is doing it right? There is one group, she's a DJ, and she is using an NFT as like a goodie bag, right?
Nice.
So she has the NFT, but don't think about it as digital media. Think about the NFT as a bag, and this NFT owns other assets. So the NFT is not quite a wallet. It's a thing that encapsulates or holds other NFTs or other ERC20s. And so you can have a curated, kind of like a FabFitFun, but it's an NFT, and you can just gift this NFT. And you give this NFT, and the container, this NFT container, has different tokens that now you can like use to get into gated chats, for example, or expose you to new communities. So I think we're kind of at the very beginning of experimentation here, because I think that when you look at the ecosystem, this whole new persona of this NFT holder is different than someone that is coming in from like potentially DeFi. So in a lot of ways, you want to say pseudo anon in DeFi because you're trading, you don't want to leak alpha, you don't want to see people seeing your trading history. And it's this thing where if you were to expose or dox yourself or who you are, then that could hurt your ability to trade, right? But with NFTs in this social crypto media, whatever you want to call it, NFTs and these tokens are badges, right? And so we're seeing these NFTs, the container NFT, actually being like a trophy room, because you can't share your wallet. You can like screenshot MetaMask and say, hey, look at all the NFTs I hold. Or you are seeing these beginnings of these sites like Showtime that are like being able to display your NFTs. But I think that, the next kind of iteration or evolution, Drew had touched on this in terms of the ownership economy. And I think social is going to be this like turning social signal into like some other asset class, and NFTs seem to be that way. Like, why are CryptoPunks? Why are Bored Ape Yacht Club? Why are these like NFTs so expensive? It's like because you own it and someone else doesn't. And with that, it's like the new Rolex, or it's a new signaling online. And so it's a different type of persona of a user. And from that, you're going to have a whole different set of tooling that emerges, right? 2017, you had the ICO run up, and you had, it crashed, and we had the bear market, and, DeFi summer of 2020 was a little different because in 2017, you didn't have the Uniswaps, the makers, the compounds of the world, or the Bancors of the world, right? To have the infra. So I think we're grasped and we're building that infra for like this social crypto right now. So I think you'll really see it emerge probably like next cycle, just like with CryptoKitties within the Ethereum ecosystem kind of blew up in 2017, and it took a market cycle for it to like go big, mainstream. I think, we're building that right now for social crypto, and you'll probably see things that we haven't even imagined. It would be interesting to go back to this talk 3 years from now to see how different and what the mindset is.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you're talking about that, because just whilst you're speaking about that, I'm just thinking of one of our developers. We call him the resident NFT king, and his name's like Diamantis Spruchis, and he sold a top level domain via an NFT and a smart contract, which unlocked the domain, which I thought was fascinating. And the beauty, there's a beauty with the fact that smart contracts, powering NFTs are backed by code. There's a lot you can do. There's a lot you can do with code. So just following on to what you previously said. I mean, do you have like just in your mind, you don't have to go too far, but like how do you have a favorite or possibly favorite, upcoming theoretical use maybe of an NFT? Is there something that's been on your mind that you think, well, that's a great use for an NFT?
Yeah, I've seen. So you have these generative NFTs, right, for media and art. I do think that you'll have like NFTs that hold or can run and process code. And is there a possibility of using NFTs as a way of open source licensing?
I do like that. That's really good. That's great. So yeah, so thanks. That was that was really insightful. So so Nate, just a bit of a different question for you. With Bancor being one of the first decentralized liquidity protocols, from your vantage point, I mean, how do you see mainstream adoption taking place within the DeFi space?
Yeah, I think we've had probably two interesting wake-up calls in the past 2 years. And that's with the emergence of DeFi and NFTs. And James was talking about personas before. And I think they represent two really interesting, and I wonder how much there's an overlap between these two personas. We talk about NFTs. What they really showed us is that we can use crypto for art and collectors and people that want to show social clout, right, through acquiring these goods. Then the investors, and so then that's the sort of NFT persona I see. Now with DeFi, I like live, sleep, and breathe, let's call them the Deegan, someone who has unabashedly got into crypto to make money and to make a lot of money fast. And this is what the DeFi movement, a big part of it was. A lot of it was philosophical, avoiding centralized points of censorship. But a lot of it at the end of the day was to just make a lot of money. And so I wonder how these two worlds collide, because what Bancor represents is it's the sort of infrastructure layer that allows, I guess, Deegans and the DeFi world, people to make a lot of money through trading tokens that increase in value, through staking inside automated market makers and liquidity pools to do yield farming. Now, what I'm very familiar with that persona. Now, what I'm not as familiar with, and James and Drew are probably way more closer to this, is this kind of collector persona. And I find it interesting because when I think of collectors in the real world, I think of people that, yeah, they want to show the Rolex on their arm. They also probably maybe care about financial gain from the good that they bought. So selling it at some point at a higher price. And I wonder how the reselling of NFTs plays out. A lot of, I think the people who buy like the top crypto punks sort of know they can resell the value of what they have. There's probably a market, someone who's willing to buy it. But as you go towards this longer tail of assets and longer tail of NFTs, at least from our perspective, for instance, we did like an incentivization of usage on our platform, and we're offering NFTs. And really the ultimate value our users saw is, yeah, there's a collector, there's a right, there's a social clout. Maybe there's an access, right, to access an event or a private Discord. But I wonder how we figure out the liquidity piece. And that's what Bancor specializes in, is liquidity. We've thought a lot about fractionalized shares in NFTs, a lot about putting those on bonding curves. That's something that Bancor pioneered through an automated market maker. That was really our vision from the beginning when we started AMMs in 2017, that any asset should always be able to be bought at some price. And I wonder, and this is kind of a question to James and Drew and you, Kieran, too, is how often do we see in this NFT world collectors who end up with NFTs and are like, great, I have it. I can put it on my like website and my registry. I can have it on my avatar and my Twitter profile. I can put it up in my gallery in my real estate area and show it. And then, but how important is the resale component and getting liquidity for the NFT? Is that just kind of expected to be able to sell it at some price? So kind of curious, which is more of a question to you guys.
Yeah, I think this is the importance of utility beyond the art itself, right? And what James touched on a little bit is like, it's a badge and it's a form of reputation, but it's beyond just I'm signaling that I got a Rolex, right? It unlocks experience. And so the fact that, if other traditional brands could do this, but I wear this Rolex, I can now get into this bar, or I can shop at this place, right? It's unlocking things, it's unlocking experience. And it has cascading effects where you can see in the future, everybody who owns this NFT I'm a new project, I want to draw attention. I recognize that all the people that hold these NFTs that are part of this community are very loyal. They align with our demographic to some extent. We airdrop directly to those people. So now you basically, the access to that thing is less about finding ways to show it and display it in various forms, but rather like the utility and the experience that it can unlock. And I think that's where the difference is going to be made. And I think, to your point, the resale value will be a lot greater for those that have thought through the utility and have created like this lasting experiential thing. One idea that I've even talked about in the past is you could do some really interesting things in terms of blockchain-based games that, variety of NFT assets, where you could essentially do like a vampire attack where, oh yeah, all those NFTs, they actually work in our game as well. But you bring them over to our game and the little Axie characters are now dragons or gnomes or whatever the character is. And then once people come over, start using those NFTs, those assets they already have in your game platform, in your world, your ecosystem, you can start introducing your own new specific to your game kind of platform NFTs. So there's a variety of ways you can start to look at how this creates like network effects.
The question, and then when I always turn to the liquidity piece of that is like, how do I know that my Axie character, how much is it worth in compared to I'm in another garden, right? Compared to another experience within that game. And that's kind of the beauty, I think, that the opportunity that I think we have with automated market makers is I potentially see that melding that allows for sort of these cross-platform interchange between different NFT environments.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we're going to see if that, or maybe that's already evolving. I'm maybe not even aware of it. I mean, have you guys seen examples of that?
Yeah, so I think so to set some like context, like DeFi, you have the rules of the game prescribed in a smart contract. You know how much yield you're going to make. You know what the next price of something is going to be. And this like ability to rely not on a person, but on a smart contract allows trading to happen, allows you to like put more money in and trust. With NFTs, none of that is prescribed, right? Like if I have an NFT and I want to, as Drew's talking about in these use cases of like added utility, me as the issuer of the NFT, I have to continue to keep on thinking of new and innovative ways. That is what's going to drive demand. It's not prescribed or written, this is the amount of yield I'll have at this moment in time. So this is why it's really hard to price, right? Because it's all going to be contextual and it's all subjective. There's nothing prescribed in code in a contract. And this is where we need the tooling to be able to quickly, whether through oracles or whatever the mechanism is, to be able to figure out what that pricing is, right? So this is why I think that like CryptoPunks has to like, or these media extensions, they have to get into marketing. They have to get into entertainment. They have to get into this mainstream mindset in order to drive further demand and awareness, because that is what will drive this like demand side pressure, the buy side pressure.
Cultural demand.
Yeah,
Cultural.
absolutely.
It's all cultural.
Does that get solved if you fractionalize these and just kind of put them on a bonding curve and have, you know, I can own 80% of the supply of this CryptoPunk for this price, and the price is, you know, as people buy this CryptoPunk and pieces of the CryptoPunk, it's increasing the price along a curve, and as people sell it, it's dropping the price. So I always know that my CryptoPunk is worth this much in Axie. That's where I wonder, like, so then is it kind of obvious that the fractionalization might need to happen? I wonder.
I generally anticipate that price will be the most least interesting thing about most NFTs.
Okay, so that's where I feel completely ignorant about the persona that you, the world that you guys live in. Because as a collector, then the resale value, what you're telling me, is irrelevant, and the price.
Well, I mean, if everybody has their own motivation, there will be people who purchase to invest, collectors who buy the rookie card knowing that it will be worth something in some day, but there's also the collector who buys the rookie card because they love that player. And they buy that rookie card, maybe NFT, because it provides access to go to dinner with that player, or to buy merchandise from his store at a discounted price, or it's all those culturally relevant, interesting things, experiential things that unlocks. And I think that's where the value for most people will exist from. So of course, back of mind, yes, like this thing is worth something, and the more value that's added to it, the more it becomes worth. But I'm not sure that that's going to be the motivating factor for a lot of people in terms of their interest in acquiring or holding on to these things.
You come for the NFT, you stay for the community.
So let's just change track a little bit here. Just off the back of that, we were talking about community. And let's talk about another powerful use of possibly powerful use of like NFTs, but tokens, in general as well. So we have quite a lot of NFT projects now that have community-based governance. This has become, an increasingly popular form of decision making. So Drew, I was just wondering, like, I mean, what do you think of this process in general?
Yeah, I mean, James said it best, summarized perfectly. Like you buy the NFT, or you start with the NFT, but you stay for the community, right? And
yeah,
I've seen this numerous times. I myself have felt this effect. You realize like, wow, there is something, this NFT is really cool. It allows me access to this or that, or to this community, say specifically. Then I get into the community and I'm like, wow, like the people here, what they're trying to do, what we're all trying to collectively accomplish is really exciting. And not only that, but because of what NFTs represent, the line between me as a consumer, or as like a passive kind of participant, and an active contributor in terms of being able to help direct the future of this project or this NFT and the experience and utility that comes with it, is super exciting. I can now vote on, yeah, let's introduce this new utility, or let's put some of our community budget, our project budget, into putting out a marketing campaign or starting an animated series like James has talked about. And like these things, so now I'm a player, I'm actually helping to dictate the future and determine the value that the market sees behind these things.
And, tell us a little bit about MetaFactory actually, and the challenges, you might have faced with this sort of setup.
Yeah, so our whole kind of approach was, we just wanted to create like an opportunity for crypto culture to be better celebrated and to be represented through a new medium. And the art side of NFTs were exploding, and we recognize like, fashion and merchandise is one of the most common ways that independent artists and or groups or bands, or however you might think about it, kind of are able to share with their fans, and the fans are able to celebrate and show support for a community. So yeah, that was kind of our thinking and our approach. And then, layering in NFTs as digital complement versions, but we also introduced a governance token for our community. So anybody who participates in that ecosystem, whether they be a buyer, a designer, technician, brand, are compensated and rewarded with our governance token, which allows them to, as I kind of was hinting at, participate in the future decision-making. This is, not unique to MetaFactory, but we have worked really hard, and this is something pretty unique to the fashion space and to especially brands generally, where, I buy Lululemon or Nike or Reebok because I identify as an athlete. But, we can flip that relationship on its head, where you don't just have to, be a passive consumer and let the brand speak for you. You can actually be a participant in deciding the future of these things, the values that you represent, and reward up and down the chain, which fashion has major problems with in terms of value capture and distribution. So better reward those designers, reward the garment makers, the embroiderers, the people who are doing this work in an equitable way, and in doing so create actually a stronger brand with greater community support. So that's kind of been our focus with what we're trying to do with MetaFactory, beyond also introducing basically decentralized production, decentralized supply chain approaches, et cetera. So trying to take some of our ethos and values from Web3 and inject them into this very physical legacy industry that, as I've started to learn through this whole experience, has a lot of problems and challenges that need to be kind of fixed. So
yeah, of course, yeah. So Nate, I mean, how about yourself? I mean, how has Bancor utilized governance to engage with its community, and have you faced any challenges?
Yeah, so Bancor governance started. The project had been around since 2017, but our DAO really launched in late 2020, so late last year. So it's been about 8 months. It coincided with a change to our protocol, where effectively the tokens can get whitelisted. And that allows the DAO and BNT holders to kind of bestow these tokens with sort of special powers. People can stake the tokens in certain ways, single-sided liquidity. So if you're familiar with liquidity pairs, most pairs require 2 tokens. With Bancor, you only need to provide 1 token, and you're fully protected against impermanent loss, which is a kind of risk you face when you're providing liquidity to AMM pools like Uniswap or SushiSwap or Balancer. On Bancor, you're fully protected against impermanent loss. So these are this new superpowers that the DAO can bestow across certain tokens, but it also takes on risk when it whitelists a token. So the DAO, in our sense, is really decides how Bancor as a protocol can both make revenue, so which tokens to sort of invest in, and also where it wants to take risk in certain tokens. And so people started really feeling empowered that they can join Bancor, hold BNT, and then sort of be like a kingmaker and vote on which tokens that they want to see whitelisted. And we now have over 100 tokens whitelisted and more being added every day. So yeah, it's been an absolute game changer that BNT holders have this thing that they can do. They can also change things in the network to divert revenue in certain directions. Bancor is now generating over 70 million annualized in revenue for the protocol. And the DAO really determines where that revenue goes, how it's earned. So it's opened up this incredible, really, world for us. We can all of a sudden empower our token holders to dictate the future of the protocol, to participate in initiatives that really push adoption. And I would say it's vastly, vastly more benefits than there have been challenges. And yeah, that's kind of the summary of how it's been integrated into the protocol.
Yeah, that's a great summary. Thank you. And James, with Collab.land's governance toolchain, like enabling tokenized communities, I mean, what has the impact been on projects like choosing to use your service?
Some communities, the only real feature of their token or the NFT is Collab.land. But that is the driving thesis here, in crypto in general, is crypto allows this reduction of coordination costs, right? So we all have a token, and this token is what binds us in terms of a relationship. And we're seeing just token gated chat as a primitive. This like small feature is a foundation that you can shoot from, right? I think that what we're seeing is this interesting interplay. And I think this goes back to like Nate's question with regards to like, you know, pricing and AMMs for like NFTs. I think that speaks to like this extrinsic motivation of like number go up, price go up. But as Nate also mentioned, in terms of like Bancor and having DAO governance, for example, there's now an intrinsic motivation to like whitelist tokens. It's about influence, that it's hard to price, but it has an impact on price. And so with Collab.land and these tokenized communities, depending on the nature of the community itself and what it's trying to do, it's really finding this balance between extrinsic motivation, where, you know, on the kind of extreme side of it is just all pure speculation, versus like complete intrinsic motivation, where you're just doing it for the love of something. And there's a balance here. And in that balance, can you find something that's sustainable and moves a group of people forward together in that shared value? And that shared value is represented by this token, right? And so that's why the token has so much meaning. And this is why there's like this, you know, it depends on the group, depends on the community, but it's not that like I take out my US dollar bill and I say, okay, this dollar bill has so much meaning. It's purely like transactional, right? And so there's this like this balance, and what we're trying to find when it comes to tooling and community building, you know, that utility versus like being able for a community to best express its value system. And really, can we provide metrics? Part of the metrics will be like price action, how long someone has held a token, so you know who the diamond hands in your community are, but also other things that you're trying to push forward. And, you know, I think Drew touched on this a little bit before as well, where you have cross collaborations. And that's what we're seeing. It can be like powerful, is like you have a musician and they may have an NFT that they sold that turns into a DAO, right? And you have the fans being able to vote on next song or next collab partnership with another musician. And then you have that, you know, married together with, I don't know, a director, right? That does something visual. So now you have an audio kind of like medium tied together with the visual medium, and can they do these interesting collaborations together? And I think that this is kind of, we're just at the cusp of like really understanding and figuring out.
I just wanted to add to that. I think a challenge because I completely agree with James about this kind of like amazing superpower now that we have with collaboration and these different communities that can sort of express their will around a certain, you know, producer, creator, project. I think there is a challenge, you know, how do you avoid that will being corrupted by, you know, large, I guess, whales and institutions that, and that's definitely something that we've faced in our own governance. You know, we have like large private investors who have a huge amount of tokens, and that affects their sway in voting. So how can you set up voting systems that people don't feel like, you know, the little guy is just being screwed over?
Yeah, fascinating. That's fascinating stuff. Well, just looking at the time, and, you know, I think that about wraps it up for all our questions today. And we hope you've enjoyed it. And I know I have. I'm just going to drop this bomb right here and now. And, you know, we've been talking about NFTs itself. You know, will NFTs itself cross the chasm? Well, you know, I don't think it's a question of if, but when will it finish crossing the chasm? So a big thank you to our guests, Drew Harding, James Young, and Nate Hindman, for joining us today. And of course, a big thank you to you, our attendees, for joining us today. Keep an eye out on our social channels for the upcoming webinars, including legal, information curation, design for Web3, and more. And as the last time, we've got a special NFT for everyone who's participated in our webinar today. And the code word for today is NFT Chasm, all one word. NFT Chasm, all one word. Go to our Discord and head over to the news channel, find a POAP bot post, and then send them the code word, and you'll be able to claim your NFT. But be quick, there are only 100 of them, and whoever's the quickest, they're going to get it. So just as a reminder to download or upgrade your Pillar app, we've just launched V2, which allows you to access Ethereum sidechain from one dashboard with automatic network switching. We're also making NFTs a first-class citizen within our Pillar app. Head over to pillar.fi to download now. Thanks for joining us.